right, let's just jump right into this because the entire landscape of the global AI race literally just shifted, and it all happened in the span of a single afternoon. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking the events of July 17th. Now, this was supposed to be a massive, triumphant day for the most resource tech company on Earth, but instead, it turned into a historic geopolitical contrast. We're going to look at exactly what went down, the hard data behind the fallout, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to adapt your stack. Look, if you follow this Explainer series, you know exactly what we were expecting. Yesterday, we told you Google had completely scrapped its flagship AI, rebuilt the whole thing from scratch, and was finally launching Gemini 3.5 Pro. Investors, developers, enterprise teams all over the world, we all had July 17th circled in red. We fully expected a launch, but yesterday came and, well, the launch didn't.
And man, the immediate fallout from that broken promise was brutal. Alphabet literally lost 4% of its entire stock value in a single day. Think about that for a second. When a company of Google's sheer size loses 4% in a matter of hours, it's not just a normal market fluctuation. That is a massive vote of no confidence. It's a credibility problem quantified in real time.
So, let's break down how we got here. Part 1, the third miss. To really grasp why the market reacted so violently, you've got to look at the pattern. This is actually the third consecutive time Google has missed a promised deadline for its flagship AI. It started with the original June target they promised back at Google I/O. Then this July 17th target for the rebuilt model came and went. And now? Prediction markets like Polymarket actually have real money betting that Google won't ship until August at the earliest. It means Google is currently the only major frontier lab without a flagship model in general production for 2026. So the big question is, why did it fail again? Well, according to reporting from Bloomberg and CNBC, even after completely rebuilding it, Gemini 3.5 Pro is still failing Google's own internal performance standards for coding and complex reasoning. Independent testers found the model is just hallucinating on totally routine tasks. Google apparently tried a late June update to the training data to fix the coding issues, but the results were internally described as just disappointing. And right now, there is zero confirmed public timeline for when this is actually going to be fixed. Which brings us to part 2, China won instead. Because while Google was very publicly stumbling in the West, a massive shift happened over in the East on that exact same afternoon. A Chinese AI lab called Moonshot dropped Kimi K3. And I really want this number to land for you, 2.8 trillion parameters. It's one of the largest publicly released models in history. They released it entirely open source with full weights, and within hours, it dominated the global LMRANA coding leaderboard. And they pulled this off without access to NVIDIA's most advanced chips because of US export controls. The contrast here is just wild when you put them side by side. On the one hand, you have the most resourced lab in the West, missing deadlines, keeping their model totally closed, and failing their own internal tests. And on the other hand, a state-backed lab in China innovates around hardware restrictions, hits their launch exactly on time, drops it fully open source, and claims the #1 coding spot on the planet. The symbolism is pretty impossible to ignore. And get this, that technical victory was perfectly synchronized with a major geopolitical maneuver. Over at the WAIC 2026 conference in Shanghai, Xi Jinping delivered a keynote to officially launch the World AI Cooperation Organization, or WACO. This is essentially an alternative AI governance body to the US-led system. It launched with 29 founding countries spanning Southeast Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. Notably, there is 0 traditional US allies on that list. So while the world was waiting for Google's software, China delivered a world-class open-source model and a brand-new global governance coalition on the exact same day. All right, shifting gears. Part 3, before July 24th. Geopolitics aside, we need to talk about what this actually means for you, the developer, right now, today. This is absolutely the most urgent takeaway from this explainer. The DeepSeek V4 migration deadline has not moved. You have exactly 6 days left. If your apps are still using the old DeepSeek Chat or DeepSeek Reasoner APIs, they are going to break on July 24th. It's a hard cutoff. No extensions. Google delaying their launch does not buy you any extra time here. Since you can't just wait around for Gemini, you've got to make your stack decisions today. Here's a look at what is actually available to you right now at the Frontier tier. If you need absolute premium performance for the hardest tasks, you've got Claude Fable 5. For the best value, Claude Sonnet 5. If you just want the cheapest Western Frontier model, Grok 4.5 is super competitive at $2 input and $6 output. But look at the alternatives. DeepSeek V4 is stable next week and drastically undercuts Western pricing, and of course, Kimi K3 offers the best coding performance in the world right now, and the weights are completely free. Okay, so here is your concrete action plan. 1. Fix your DeepSeek API calls right now before that July 24 break. 2. Stop waiting for Gemini 3.5 Pro. There is no confirmed date, and your business just can't run on prediction market odds. 3. If you need a cheap, frontier-level coding model today, fire up your tests for Grok 4.5 or go download the Kimi K3 weights. That is how you stay operational this week. Let's zoom out a bit. Part 4. What 3 failures mean. We've looked at the timeline, the geopolitics, and the developer checklist. But what does Google dropping the ball 3 times actually say about the state of the whole industry? The metrics are honestly staggering. Because the US government heavily restricted access to its own best models, like GPT 5.6, for security reasons, but left Chinese model imports totally unrestricted, the enterprise landscape has completely shifted. Right now, a massive 46% of US enterprise AI workloads are already flowing to Chinese alternatives. Nearly half the market is adopting these models because they're available, they're cheap, and, as Kimi K3 just proved, they are incredibly capable. I think the ultimate reality check from July 17th is that the AI frontier is just brutally difficult. Google poured months of compute and literally millions of dollars into a full restart for Gemini, and they still got the architecture wrong. Resources alone absolutely do not guarantee you a working model. Meanwhile, open source models from China aren't just catching up, they are aggressively undercutting Western pricing by 5 to 6 times, and they're beating closed models on really rigorous benchmarks. Which honestly brings us right back to why we do this explainer. Yesterday we told you the launch was coming, because that's what the corporate PR machine promised. Today we're telling you it didn't. We do this so you always know what is actually happening out in the field, not just what a press release claims. The AI race is clearly not unfolding the way the West planned. Make sure you stay tuned so you're never finding these things out a week late. And I'll leave you with one final vital question. If the richest, most incredibly resourced tech company on Earth literally cannot buy its way to a working frontier model, who actually controls the future of artificial intelligence? Think about that for a bit, and I'll see you in the next explainer.
Welcome to The Debate. So July 17, 2026, Google's rebuilt Gemini 3.5 Pro stalled out for, the 3rd time now, and it immediately tanked Alphabet stock by 4%.
Right, yeah. And on that exact same afternoon, a Chinese lab, Moonshot, they launched Kimi K3, which is just wild because they are operating with a fraction of the compute and basically zero access to top-tier NVIDIA chips.
Yeah, a 2.8 trillion parameter open source model. It just instantly topped global coding benchmarks. The timing is, honestly, it's almost too perfectly scripted.
It really is.
So we are looking at a massive divergence here. Does Google's failure merely illustrate this extreme punishing technical ceiling of frontier AI architecture? Or does that afternoon signal a fundamental structural shift in global AI dominance toward China? I will say up front, I think this is a brutal technical wall.
Well, I disagree. I think Chinese open source models are structurally overtaking Western closed systems permanently. You just can't look at the juxtaposition of those two events and see just an engineering hurdle, you know? This exposes a massive geopolitical tipping point.
Okay, but look at Google's situation. I look at it and I see the physical reality of the technology. Rebuilding a frontier model from scratch is just devastatingly complex.
Sure, but
They spent months of compute and millions of dollars on a full pre-training restart. They pushed late June updates just to address coding deficiencies. And yet it's still hallucinated, right? It totally failed their internal reasoning benchmarks.
why is the most resourced lab on Earth failing its own internal bar? While Moonshot is releasing full weights for Kimi K3. They topped the LMRN leaderboard.
Because it's harder at the edge.
No, it's because they relied on algorithmic efficiency rather than just brute force scaling. They optimized their architecture to bypass the need for those advanced US chips they literally are banned from buying. And they broke through. We are already seeing 46% of US enterprise AI workloads flow into these Chinese alternatives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 46%, that is a structural market takeover, plain and simple.
It's a market shift, definitely, but we really have to understand why Google is stalling. It's not some collapse of Western ingenuity, it's the data wall.
The data wall.
Yes, look, in aerospace, if you just pump more thrust into a jet with bad aerodynamics, you don't break the sound barrier. You just create exponentially more drag until the engine tears itself apart.
That's a fun analogy, but
It's exactly what's happening here with scaling laws, pumping massive compute into exhausted, unstructured training data creates noise, not reasoning. Google hit the wall first simply because they are pushing the absolute bleeding edge of raw scale.
I would buy the data wall defense if this was, entirely isolated to technical metrics. But you are completely missing the macro environment that shifted on that exact same day.
You mean WAICO?
Yes, at the WAIC conference in Shanghai, Xi Jinping launched the World AI Cooperation Organization, WAICO.
Right, but WAICO is largely symbolic, right? Like what governance bodies.
29 founding countries across Southeast Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America is not just symbolic. These are the exact developing economies the U.S. tried to shield from Chinese AI influence through export controls. The export ban didn't contain China, it forced them to build a highly capable parallel global ecosystem.
Ribbon-cutting ceremonies are one thing, sure, but developers make practical choices based on immediate pressures, not geopolitics. An enterprise team waiting on Gemini 3.5 Pro isn't changing their national allegiance.
They're changing their tech stack.
Right. They are just switching their API keys to keep their apps running. And the safety net for those developers is still entirely Western. Prediction markets expect Google to ship by August.
That's a huge maybe.
Even so, in the meantime, if you need premium performance, Claude Fable 5 is right there at $10 per million input tokens. If you want it cheap, Grok 4.5 is $2.
You are ignoring the immediate, brutal economics on the ground right now. Developers are being forced to act this week. Look at the hard July 24th DeepSeek API migration deadline.
Ah, right.
Yeah, in just a few days, the old DeepSeek chat endpoints permanently break.
And you think that forces a migration specifically to Chinese models?
The math forces it. When enterprises look at their mandatory migration options, DeepSeek v4 is sitting right there, undercutting Western pricing at 44 cents per million input tokens.
44 cents, right.
Yes, that is less than a 20th of Claude Fable's price. For enterprise teams scaling massive workloads, Chinese models aren't just an alternative anymore. They are economically undeniable.
Look, Google's 3 miss deadlines undoubtedly expose how unforgiving the architecture is at the frontier limit. Hitting that aerodynamic drag at Mach 1 doesn't mean the West has lost the engineering race. It just means the physical limits of scaling unstructured data are universal, even for the best resource labs in the world.
And yet, Kimi K3's victory, which they achieved under heavy silicon sanctions, combined with WACO's 29-country coalition, basically proves those limits are being aggressively circumvented by a parallel ecosystem. Western containment failed.
Well, the true stress test of this market shift is happening right now. The decisions developers make before that July 24th API deadline will prove whether the West's structural safety net holds or if the global tech ecosystem is fundamentally running on a different engine.